Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast today. We'll be talking about MSMEs, who are regarded as the foundation of the economy. We'll also talk about financial infrastructure, which is very important for the growth of this sector, and the very important role played by credit bureaus like TransUnion CIBIL. Joining us today is Bhavesh Jain. Welcome to our podcast today.
Hi Madan, excited to be on your podcast.
Fantastic, great. So, by way of context, many of you would know that CIBIL was one of the first credit bureau in India. And they play a very important role in the whole marketplace of credits, lending and borrowing. So Bhavesh, can you begin by telling us about how did you become such a household name over the last 25 years in this space of credit lending and borrowing?
We started under the context of the Siddiqui Committee, and we are governed by the Credit Information Companies Act passed in Parliament in 2005, under which all the financial institutions in the country submit data about retail individuals who have taken loans or the MSMEs and corporates who have taken loans from any of the credit institutions. Their data gets submitted to us on a regular basis. We combine it, we synthesize it and deliver those credit reports along with the CIBIL score or CIBIL MSME rank on a real-time basis to all the financial institutions whenever a borrower goes to these institutions seeking loan. Now, how did we evolve as a household name? There's a lot of data and insights. Almost 65 crore plus individuals credit data reported to us, as I mentioned, as per the SICRA Act. And we have 3.6 crore MSMEs data reported to us on a regular basis. Now that's the deep reach we have achieved over the last 25 years. And as this data gets reported to us on a regular basis, all the financial institutions do pull the credit reports as well as the scores and the CMR of these consumers every time they go to them seeking loan. But at the same time, we have 10 crore plus individuals who come on CIBIL.com or to any of our partner channels, access their own credit report and monitor them on a regular basis. As per law, every Indian citizen is entitled for one CIBIL report free every year. Now, when these consumers or citizens come to on CIBIL.com and take their report, they monitor it on a regular basis, and this helps them to get the best entitlement from different financial institutions across the country. We work with financial institutions, we work very closely with the consumers, the MSMEs directly through the financial institutions to create an ecosystem of credit awareness in the country. And that's the biggest reason for CIBIL to be a household name, and we are really proud because we want to truly empower the consumers and MSMEs in the country and ensure that we are getting the best terms and conditions within this country based upon a good repayment history.
Thanks, Bhavesh, for stepping us through how this process works and for your very impressive achievements. Congratulations. There are many SMEs, however, who are still not served by this whole credit system. So what are you doing for more financial inclusion? What are some innovations you have in this space?
We have come a long way on the retail lending side in the country. Just to give some data points, we have 65 crore individuals credit information reported to us by financial institutions on a regular basis. Now that's out of a population of 1.4 billion, and out of these 65 crore individual data reported, 25 crore plus consumers are credit active. Now this, when you compare it with MSMEs, there are different data points circulated by different agencies, but somewhere between 7 to 8 crore MSMEs exist in the country, of which 3.6 crore MSMEs data is reported to us. 90 lakh MSME borrowers are credit active. Now there's a long way before we achieve a good credit penetration on the MSME space. Now why it is important? It's important for multiple factors. MSMEs play a very crucial role in India's GDP growth. They contribute, in fact, 1/3 of the GDP. And most important is MSMEs employ the semi-skilled and the unskilled laborers, which is critical for an emerging economy like ours. For our Viksit Bharat dream, MSMEs are going to play a very important role. And we at CIBIL are committed to work with these MSMEs directly as well as through our partners, which are the financial institutions like bank, NBFCs, cooperative banks, regional rural banks. Specifically, the cooperative banks and the regional rural bank are the institutions created to cater to neighborhood lending. A small shopkeeper or a small trader goes to a cooperative banks, RRBs to get their credit need fulfilled. And what we are doing at CIBIL is that we have provided many solutions to the credit institutions, and the key one being the CIBIL Commercial Credit Report and the CIBIL MSME rank. CIBIL MSME rank ranges from 1 to 10. 1 is a CIBIL MSME rank which ensures a very high likelihood for an MSME borrower to get the loan from any of the RBI approved financial institutions. And what it also provides an empowerment to the MSME is that if you have a good CMR, you're going to get the best rate of interest and the best terms and conditions by any of the financial institutions across the country. So it's not just the credit report and CIBIL MSME rank, but we are working on multiple other solutions to truly enable the MSMEs to get cheaper and faster access of credit from the organized credit market.
So Bhavesh, you just talked about banks and all these other kinds of new entities getting into the ecosystem. So clearly there's a lot of change in this whole financial ecosystem in terms of new regulations, new kinds of players, technology, startups and so on. So how is your role as a credit bureau changing in all of this?
So we had traditionally been working with all these financial institutions as per the SECURA Act. But what's interesting is that the banks, the NBFCs, the cooperative banks, the NBFC, fintechs all have played a very critical role in enhancing the credit availability through the MSMEs and individuals, largely the proprietors as well. And CIBIL has played an important role that whenever an MSME goes to a financial institution, they may or may not have all the requisite documentation, collateral. But based upon the credit history, an MSME borrower can get further line of credit or can get additional line of credit basis the credit history, basis the CIBIL MSME rank. And what we are also trying to work is that how do we enable a new to credit MSME in the country to get sort of access to credit. We are working with a few institutions to come up with the FIT rank. FIT rank is basis the credit information reported by institutions, the GST information, the bank statement, the income statement. Now, if a small time trader or a shopkeeper does not have a established credit history, may not have filed GST because of the turnover and the financial standing, but will definitely have a bank statement. Almost every individual or a small time shopkeeper or a trader would have a bank statement. So basis the bank statement information, we can provide a FIT rank. Basis the FIT rank, a credit institution can give a loan to even a new to credit MSME borrower. Now that's very important if we have to further increase the credit penetration within the MSME space in India.
Great, thanks Bhavesh. So it's very important for both the new to credit MSMEs as well as established MSMEs to have a very clear line to credit. So it's a huge game changer, a whole world of opportunity opens up once you get that credit rating. So what are you doing to increase these kinds of accessibility of credits for MSMEs?
So we are working on multiple initiatives. We have partnered with different financial institutions, different partners to increase the awareness about financial literacy, about credit education, and why it's important to create that awareness, because historically MSMEs have operated within the informal credit sector or relied on trade credit. And if MSMEs have to further contribute towards the GDP growth of the country and for us to achieve the Viksit Bharat dream, they need to be given access to formal credit. And now formal credit is pretty important, because when you move an MSME from the unorganized credit sector to the organized credit sector, they get access to credit at a lower rate of interest. Now that sort of improvement in the rate of interest helps an MSME improve their margins, because in India you have a sizable proportion of MSMEs who are traders, who are not adding value to their goods, but they are largely trading. So if you provide those 2 to 4% of additional margins to those traders, they can deploy back that capital into their business or use it for personal consumption. Now that comes back to the economy in a big way, and there's a multiplier effect. And what we are doing is that we are doing multiple MSME yatras to engage with the MSMEs directly, explaining them the importance of a good repayment history. Because what over the last 25 years, we have worked with the individuals and MSMEs to create the trade culture within the country, because an MSME needs to get access to formal trade on a regular basis. More than an individual, it's an MSME who needs access to trade on a regular basis for working capital needs, for business expansions, for expanding the manufacturing capacity, and multiple such fronts. So along with trade education, we are also encouraging MSMEs to check their own commercial trade report on a regular basis, so that they can manage a sort of a trade history as well as ensure a good repayment history, which will give them good benefits from trade institutions.
Great, thanks. I'm very glad you brought up the topic of credit culture. Not many people are aware of this. And I like how you touched on what we could call the 3 A's: awareness, access, affordability to credit. So looking back over the last 20 years, what are some trends you're seeing in this space? We're coming towards the end of one year, the beginning of another new year. What are some trends, maybe one big trend you've seen personally that affects how credit changes the future of an organization?
So I would say last a decade or so, the biggest change is digital lending. And why I would say is that I will go back to a story long back. Madan, you and me, if we were asked to buy a television for our household, we would actually go into neighborhood electronic shops. We would inquire about the television set, and that electronic shop would give us all the specifications, that rate. We would put it on a piece of paper, show it to our parents, and our parents would say that on one of the auspicious day, we will go to that retail store and buy that electronic. It was a lengthy process. Yes, it was fun. And it was an involved purchase where all of us as kids along with our parents were involved in that purchase. And it took us weeks or probably months to buy that one television set. Now, when my daughters want to buy a television set, they will be sitting with me on the comfort of the sofa set in the living room. They will log on to any of the e-commerce apps. They will look at different television sets, compare it, show it to me and my wife, and tell me that if you have a credit card, this credit card is offering you this cashback facility, or at the checkout stage, you can get it financed through one of the banks or NBFCs. And then try to position it to me that why just buy a television set because you are not paying upfront? Can we look at buying a home theater as well? I would get excited, yes, that I can get a television set as well as I can get a home theater over an EMI. Just think about it. An involved purchase a decade back or 2 decades back has got converted into an impulse purchase. And at the same time, you're fulfilling the dreams or the aspirations of every Indian household and making convenience possible for the consumer. So I would say the biggest trend changer or the trendsetter has been the digital lending in the financial ecosystem. It has largely evolved on the individual lending side or the retail lending side, but it's sort of getting started on the MSME side. You already have credit information available for the MSMEs, you have the GST information, you have the bank statement, you have the income statement information available. Everything coming together will enable us to further penetrate the organized credit into the MSME. And it's pretty important because today if an MSME, like a small shopkeeper or a trader, wants to get access to working capital basis their daily purchases from the wholesalers or the manufacturers, that ease of getting credit over a click of a button is going to really empower their growth going forward. And why it's important is that today an MSME is going to be focusing largely on the business and not going to be spending too much time looking for credit. MSME needs to focus on the business growth and not get hassled by calling a friend or a family member or a service provider saying that, can you give me credit? I need to increase the stock for any of the festive period. So digital lending has changed the retail lending landscape in this country, and digital lending is going to propel the growth of MSMEs in this country. So that's the biggest game changer, I would say, for the financial ecosystem.
Great. Thanks, Bhavesh. I'm sure many in the audience are smiling as you went through all the stories of how the whole credit process has changed over the generations. But more importantly, you stressed the importance of having that credit culture, the discipline of having a very good credit history, and therefore inclusion comes to you, innovation, data, finance, and a very good future. Well, Bhavesh, you've talked a lot about the importance of trust and credit and how the CIBIL score has become a household name. Can you tell us a bit about how this works? What is the process of the score?
So, as I mentioned, that financial institutions submit data about retail borrowers on a regular basis. So, basis the submitted data, we combine it and deliver it in form of the credit information report back to the institutions as well as individuals like you and me. Score is calculated basis the repayment history and credit offtake and few other credit related parameters. And the CIBIL score ranges from 300 to 900, 900 being the best. The higher the CIBIL score of an individual, higher is the likelihood of an individual getting a loan from any of the financial institutions in the country. And it's a very important parameter for an individual to have a good credit score or a good CIBIL score, because when an individual goes to a bank or an NBFC, the first thing they do is check the CIBIL score of an individual seeking loan. So the higher the score, the better terms and conditions you get. So you would have seen many hoardings by different public sector banks and other financial institutions saying that if you have a CIBIL score higher than this threshold, you will get the best rate of interest. Now there are multiple benefits an individual gets basis a good CIBIL score. Today, not just housing loan, but a lot of other loans are linked to the CIBIL score of an individual. And there are multiple stories I can tell, Madan, related to CIBIL score or the CIBIL report of an individual. Let me share one personal story with you. So a few years back, I was traveling from Chandigarh to Amritsar to visit the Golden Temple with my family early morning, and my family was sleeping and I was getting calls from office, and I kept mentioning the word CIBIL few times, and the driver was a young chap. He heard me mention CIBIL a few times, and when I kept the call, he asked me, "Sir, do you work with CIBIL?" And I said yes. I didn't reveal my profile or anything of that. But he said, "Sir, I want to tell you one story related to CIBIL." He said, "Sir, during demonetization, cash was not accepted at petrol pumps in a lot of locations because of drivers requiring petrol on a regular basis. It's important that I get a credit card." And he started paying all his petrol bills basis the credit card. And he used to pay on a regular basis all the credit card bills. And he built a good repayment history. He had a good CIBIL report and a good CIBIL score, thanks to his repayment habit and ensuring that he pays his credit card bills on a timely basis. I said, "Good, you are a credit aware consumer." Then he said, "Sir, the story does not end there. The story actually starts from there." I said, "Okay, go ahead." He said, "I wanted to buy a home for my elderly parents, and I wanted to fulfill their dream to own a home." I said, "That's great, that's inspiring to hear." And he said, "I went to one of the public sector banks and I said, I want to take a housing loan to buy a home on the outskirts of Mohali." The first thing they asked the young chap is that, "What's your CIBIL score?" And he said, "My CIBIL score is 780. And he went through the entire process, the documentation, and he was given a housing loan. This is the best rate of interest. And he said, congratulations. I told him that really happy to hear that you were able to fulfill your parents' dream to own a home. But he said, sir, in this entire story, CIBIL and CIBIL score played a very important role. I said, how? He said, sir, this time when I went to take a housing loan, I was asked about my CIBIL score. And because of my good repayment habits, I had a good CIBIL score and I was entitled to the best rate of interest in the country from a leading bank. And I was not demeaned for my profession of being a driver, but I was able to achieve my dreams and aspirations because of a good repayment behavior and a good CIBIL score. And he thanked me and I thanked him back, saying that we need youngsters like you who would continue to manage their financials well, will have a good repayment behavior, and when you tell this story to your friends, they will get motivated to further ensure their good repayment habits, and that will build a credit culture within the country. And youngsters will be responsible towards not just taking credit, but repaying for the credit they have taken. So I think so that story will stay with me for the rest of my life. While the CIBIL score is a number from 300 to 900, but it's actually touching positively every Indian and citizen of this country.
Thanks, Bhavesh. That's a very inspiring story. It's one which relates to all of us at YourStory, and I'm sure to all our readers as well. But beneath the story is a very important lesson that it's very important to have a good credit history. So, what are some tips that you have for our audience, especially the youngsters in the audience? What should they be doing to get sure that they have a good credit history?
Absolutely bang on question, Madan, that youngsters today, unlike our generation or our parents' generation, where the exposure to credit would be at a much later stage, today youngsters are exposed to credit at a pretty early stage, and it's important that they are responsible towards their credit exposure. They should take credit within their means, firstly. Second is, once they get credit, they should repay it on a timely basis. Third and important aspect is they should check their free CIBIL report annually, and they should continue to monitor not just their credit history but their CIBIL score as well, because it's very similar to monitoring your health. It's important to monitor your credit history and your CIBIL score, as a good health ensures a good lifestyle. A good credit history and a good CIBIL score ensures your ability to get credit within this country. So my biggest advice to all the youngsters and all the listeners of YourStory is that responsible credit sahi hai. We have seen that consumers who monitor their credit report and score, a sizable proportion, in fact, to be precise, almost 46% of the consumers who monitor their CIBIL report with us have improved their scores over a 12-month period. You will work towards improving it. And as you improve your CIBIL score as well as your credit repayment behavior improves, your benefits within the financial ecosystem gets better every day.
Fantastic, Bhavesh. Those are two very great sets of messages: discipline and responsibility on the one hand, and also look at how the industry sees this through the CIBIL score. So, Bhavesh, we've talked quite a bit about financial inclusion in terms of why it is so important, etc. Can you give us some specifics on how you actually implemented this financial inclusion in terms of credit?
So we have worked very closely with all the financial institutions in the country, and I would really call out and appreciate how the entire industry has come together to propel the agenda of financial inclusion. And to give some statistics, from April 2019 to March 2024, more than 20 crore individuals have been brought into the credit fold, and it's heartening to see that 8 crore women borrowers have been brought into the organized credit industry. Now that has really changed the great landscape in the country and makes us feel very proud as Indian that we've come a long way on financial inclusion and credit inclusion.
Great. Thanks, Bhavesh. I think at different points of our podcast today, people have been smiling hearing the stories you mentioned about transformation of credit and the whole financial ecosystem. I'm sure they're very inspired by what you talked about in terms of financial inclusion, especially for women entrepreneurs. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Madan, for the compliment and the kind words. But everything we do, we are committed towards the mission of financial inclusion and credit inclusion in this country. If we have to achieve our dream of Viksit Bharat, credit will play a very important role, and CIBIL stands for enabling credit for every Indian. So thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast.
Thanks. So I think in sum, CIBIL has been very important in advancing the financial infrastructure of the country. For MSMEs, you not just played a role in credit ratings, but also in terms of financial inclusion, the whole culture of innovation, data, and the future of the economy. On behalf of YourStory, thank you for joining us today. Thank you.